Chapter. I'm literally Mahito. Narrator's Pav. The world of Dandadan is vaster than Jujutsu Kaisen's, there's no debate, kid. Dandadan's universe is better. Who's this idiot? He doesn't even understand the difference between vast and better. An overweight man complained in front of his phone while munching on chips. This man was Alex, an individual known as an otaku. Alex was having an ordinary sick day when a notification on TikTok caught his attention. A user had responded to a comment where Alex was discrediting Dandadan's universe by comparing it to Jujutsu Kaisen's. If Alex had been a normal person, he would have just ignored the comment, blocked the individual, and gone about his day. But Alex wasn't like that. He was a keyboard warrior. So he launched into a debate that seemed to have been going on for hours with this mysterious individual. I know how we'll settle this situation. I'm going to send you into Dandadan's universe, at the beginning of the story. After reading this message, Alex was first surprised before bursting into laughter. Another one who believes they're their own username. Seriously, who would call themselves random eldritch god? Despite mocking the individual, Alex decided to play along. He had to prepare food soon, so he preferred the debate to stop, even if he hadn't been able to impose his opinion. Alex nevertheless showed his approval of the idea from the internet user calling themselves random eldritch god. I knew you wouldn't be a coward. Now, tell me, what power would you like to have from the JJK universe? At first, Alex wanted to write Gojo, but he quickly stopped. A question came to his mind at that moment: who has the scariest talent in JJK? Names quickly came to his mind. The first was Sukuna, the second Yuji Itadori, the third Mahito, fourth Megumi, and the last Yuta. After a period of hesitation, he wrote that he preferred to have all of Mahito's abilities, including those specific to cursed spirits. It'll be slightly adapted to Dandadan's world, but you'll be able to do everything he could do in JJK. Goodbye, Mr. Enlightened One. I hope you'll bother someone else. Bam. Alex didn't finish his joke before his phone violently exploded. Shit, my head's spinning, said Alex as he got up despite his headache. What? Alex found himself in an unknown classroom. Its style resembled that of Japanese high schools he saw in manga. What's this thing? A paper had just fallen on him. No, I'm not enlightened, and no, I won't bother someone else since I'm not done with our little debate. After that, the sheet started burning before disappearing. Damn, I should have chosen Sukuna, whispered Alex. He had chosen Mahito on a whim, and now he would have to face spirits and aliens with formidable powers. Alex began to observe the class more carefully. It didn't take him long to recognize this universe's protagonist. Image. Oh, he seems unable to see me for now, he noted, remembering that ordinary people couldn't see spirits, except under certain conditions. And it seemed that, for now, Alex didn't meet these conditions with Okarun. He must not have much spiritual energy without Turbo Granny. I better explore elsewhere for now. He left Okarun to get harassed by papers thrown at him and began to move around the high school. Alex didn't really have any other goal than surviving to win his bet, but the idea of being in a manga excited him a bit. Too bad I'm not in JJK like Mahito. Sigh. He consoled himself by saying that at least he had superpowers now. While walking in the hallway, Alex met an extremely familiar face. This girl must surely be Kuki Yukishiro. She'll be perfect for making my mark among humans for now. He headed toward her before transforming into a bat and landing on her shoulder. Image. He didn't know exactly how he controlled his cursed technique, but, if he had to describe it, it would be like using a body part. It's purely instinctive and natural. The moment Mahito landed on Kuki's shoulder, she had a slight shiver before relaxing under Alex's influence. It's honestly easy to manipulate hormones in the brain with Mahito's power, but I should be careful not to break her. Under Alex's impulse, Kuki slowly fell asleep. A few hours passed and people started emptying the room. Classes are over already. She got up hurriedly to prepare to go home. Alex stayed on her shoulder throughout the process. He wanted to get used to this form since he would use it often in the future. Strange, I haven't slept this well in a long time. Kuki's gloomy face seemed to have regained some color. Once at her home, Alex just observed the place until the young girl lay down on the bed. Let's see if I can really make something useful out of you, or if I should just look for someone else, whispered Alex while placing his paws on Kuki's lower abdomen. Alex intended to unblock Kuki's chakras, kind of like how the aliens had accidentally done with Momo Ace. If I remember correctly, the energy must accumulate in the belly before coming out through the top of the head. Alex began trying to control the energy emanating from Kuki's soul using his cursed technique. At first, his control over his cursed technique was clumsy, but he slowly improved throughout the process. Nothing happened during Alex's act on Kuki, except that the young girl's pale complexion improved slightly. I must have missed a detail, otherwise Momo's grandmother would also have psychic powers, and they wouldn't depend on the gods. While thinking, Alex recalled what the aliens had said. They talked about brain overstimulation. At the time, the aliens had used their telekinesis to manipulate Momo Yasa's brain waves and made her excited. Having realized this, Alex used Momo's grandmother's strange technique on Kuki thanks to his own cursed technique and stimulated the young girl's brain to make her excited. He felt slightly uncomfortable seeing a teenager rubbing her thighs with excitement, but he forced himself to focus on his mission. He might be an evil spirit now, but Alex remains a man of principles despite his meager amount of experience in these particular departments. Boom! A psychic explosion occurred in the room. Am I bleeding? Alex wondered, because Mahito was immune to physical damage, but special attacks touching the soul could reach him. This situation reminded him of Turbo Granny's explanation about the aura or essence that all beings in this reality possess. It seems this explosion contains spiritual energy or aura. I should be wary of psychic power holders from now on. Who are you? Kuki had regained her bearings after the overstimulation caused by Mahito's power. She seemed to have successfully acquired psychic powers, as Alex wanted. I'm Mahito. I'll come back to see you later, and don't forget, you're no longer alone, Kuki, because I heard your prayers. Alex flew out the window after hearing footsteps approaching from outside the room. Although invisible to common mortals, Alex preferred to give Kuki time to digest the situation and her new powers. Author's note: I hope many readers will enjoy this fanfic. P.S. I had initially considered choosing Yabaku from Noragami as the protagonist, but I changed my mind for several reasons. One of them is the lack of complete information regarding gods in both works. Soul_Eater_0252 Creators, Thoughts. 14 comments 0 vote. Chapter 2. Mom, Mahito's Pav. Nothing special happened that night after my encounter with Kuki. I just wandered around, looking for a particular street. I wanted to meet an extremely dangerous woman who could be useful if I played my cards right. Unfortunately, I didn't find her. I think I'll have to hang around Momo to meet her or ask her grandmother directly. Besides this unsuccessful search, I also helped a few homeless people and random runaways with my powers. This universe is literally one giant creepypasta. So, I should start building my urban legend, right? There's also the fact that words and names have real power here. It's in my best interest to make myself known to mortals quickly. I just hope to find an interesting surprise once my urban legend starts spreading. Hey, Kuki, you look better. I approached Kuki, who was heading toward Kami High. She jumped when she heard my voice before pulling me into a hug. I have to admit, I didn't mind. I was in my bat form, so she could easily catch me for a cuddle. You're the mysterious being who gave me my powers. There was unmistakable gratitude in her voice. That proves she's really the desperate person I need to carry out my orders. She just needs proper training before she can fulfill my commands. I don't want to spoil the mood of our reunion, but I'm invisible, and you're not. My words quickly brought her back to reality. She took a quick look around before rushing with me to a nearby alley. She must have noticed the weird looks people were giving her. Cough, this idiot squeezed me a little too hard. Sorry, I didn't mean to, she tried to explain, but I motioned for her to stop. I'm immune to physical attacks, I just choked a little because of her. So, nothing serious. It's fine, the main thing is that we're now in a quieter place, I said while scanning the alley. She nodded, a little shyly. As I already said, I'm Mahito, a local spirit. And if I'm not mistaken, you're Kuki Yukishiro, right? She nodded. Yes, but Mahito-sama, may I know how you know me and why you gave me this power? Slightly hesitant at first, Kuki eventually expressed her doubts about my intentions. It's simple, I know your name, and I chose you because I've been watching you for a while, Kuki, I explained, settling on her shoulder. You're a stalker. She lost all initial respect and started to panic a bit. Cut it out, idiot, I really don't have the patience for this kind of nonsense. I was just looking for a champion, and you made me feel pity, so I decided to take you under my wing, I said honestly. Of course, I won't directly tell Kuki that she's going to be my slave. I prefer to disguise it as a champion. She showed a downcast expression upon realizing I chose her out of pity and not for any special reason. I get it, but why do you call me by my name? I understand you're my boss, but… that Japanese thing. We had a little conversation before hurriedly leaving the alley. It's not that our discussion was over, I just didn't have time to make Kuki take an oath of obedience because of school. She glanced at her watch before rushing to her classroom, but not before grabbing me. It seems I've found an interesting subordinate, but she has some gaps, and I really wanted to see if I could make someone else take an oath at me. Maybe I should have waited for the class representative of Okarun to be cursed by her childhood friend. I could have just resolved the situation with my cursed technique and gained a singer capable of influencing the world around her. Wait a minute, why not awaken her to the supernatural myself instead of relying on Okarun's sphere? I think I'm capable of exorcising Rin's childhood friend, and with my powers, I'm confident enough to pose as a vampire, right? The idea is really tempting, but I choose to abandon that plan. I'll just wait for her to pick up the sphere herself. Why risk someone's life so much when I can simply hang around and wait for Momo's grandmother to do all the work? You really don't have any friends, huh? We were currently on break, and I was still on Kuki's shoulder. Yes, the atmosphere was really lame. I changed into my Mahito form, except I was wearing a butler's outfit. I ignored Kuki's shocked expression and sat in front of her. Image, it's kind of sad that you're eating alone, so I'll keep you company. I took a sauce from her bento and ate it. Not bad, I'd even say it's delicious. Is that your real form? Kuki stammered, watching me with a slight blush. I sometimes forget that the original Mahito had a certain popularity among female fans in the JJK manga, and it seems this appearance doesn't leave Kuki indifferent. Yes, but I find turning into a crow or a bat more practical, those are my honest thoughts. Once Kuki and I finished eating, I temporarily parted from her despite her protests. I needed to increase my knowledge about the interesting spirits in the area, and I didn't want Kuki to get too attached to me. I once read that very introverted individuals can develop dependence on someone who's nice to them. I want a subordinate, not a creature completely dependent on me. Oh, a spirit, this is the first time I've encountered one since my reincarnation. I remember that she's obsessed with being called Mom. If she's here, then, I followed the spirit's gaze and spotted a beautiful girl surrounded by several high school boys. She must be Ira, but how did that guy, Takamura, resist this? Image, I changed my form to look like child Mahito. I want to fight this spirit, and I knew my opponent liked children. Hey, miss, I approached her. The spirit of the woman, who had died by suicide, stared at me for a second before moving at lightning speed. Of course, I managed to react in time. My child, she screamed. Damn, I think I made a blunder, but it's too late to turn back now. Mom, I tilted my head like kids do in manga. Yes, darling, I am your mother. She spread her arms as she approached. I don't know, you're a bit scary. I stepped back slowly. Sorry, is this appearance scaring you? She began to glow before taking on the appearance of a young woman. Image, Mom, I dove into her arms. Surprisingly, she returned the embrace. I admit I hesitated a bit before activating my cursed technique after piercing her chest. Sorry, I need to know. Despite the spirit's screams of pain, I continued trying to absorb the strange energy I suspected was aura. I had been tempted to try with Kuki, but I gave up. Kuki is currently an ally, and it would be a waste to accidentally kill her for an experiment. Why? Murmured the spirit, shedding tears. Sorry, Mom, it's temporary. I finally stopped after feeling satisfied. I left the fallen ghost on the ground as I walked away. I felt bad for her, but she should survive since I didn't absorb all the aura. Please, look after Ira. Not only did I consume her aura, but I also tried to revive her mortal memories. I think it's a fair payment in exchange for this meal, right? Author's note. I love this story, but it's not my priority. Soul_Eater_0252 creators, thoughts. 6 comments 0 vote. Chapter 3. You must become interesting. Pav of the narrator. Where did you go? After her encounter with the child-obsessed spirit, Mahito was back, perched on Kuki's shoulder in his bat form. I told you, I was taking a walk, and I even met an interesting woman. Mahito's words made Kuki shiver slightly. Of course, Mahito noticed it. He drew a sadistic smile on his bat face. Unsurprisingly, it made his expression even more threatening. What? Your master isn't allowed to flirt with other ghosts since he took you under his wing? He teased. Kuki, caught off guard, avoided his gaze, too embarrassed. It's just. She was too flustered to formulate coherent arguments to refute Mahito's teasing. A piece of advice, my little protégé: if you want something, then take it. Of course, that includes my heart. Before Kuki realized it, Mahito's human face was dangerously close to hers. Their breaths mingled. Kuki's face was visibly red, but she showed no resistance when Mahito grabbed her chin to bring her face closer to his. You're not interesting enough, Mahito whispered in her ear before returning to his bat form. There was an awkward silence for the rest of the day. Kuki had too many conflicting emotions in her head after Mahito's act. Why is my heart reacting like this? Of course, Mahito was aiming for exactly that. I must make her want to chase after me. An oath is good as a chain, but human emotions are more effective. Mahito didn't know it yet, but he hadn't only inherited Mahito's powers. His original personality had been influenced by the original Mahito's, which impacted his view of humans. It should also be remembered that Mahito was literally born from human hatred. Tell me, do you have a goal now that you have powers? As the heavy silence continued, Mahito decided to break it himself. I don't know, you haven't really explained what my obligations are as your champion, she replied after hesitation. Apart from obeying me from time to time, you're literally free. But if you don't have a purpose, I can give you one, if you want, he said mysteriously. A purpose? She seemed thoughtful for a moment before turning her gaze back to Mahito. What purpose do you think would suit me? At this question, the smile already present on Mahito's face grew even wider. How about exploring the supernatural of this world with me? And who knows, you might become interesting along the way. At the mention of the word interesting, Kuki's face turned red. Okay, she replied timidly. Excellent, we'll start your training tonight, around 2 a.m., he suddenly declared, catching Kuki a bit off guard. What do you mean, training? I thought you wanted us to explore the supernatural. Yes, but without strength, you'd get yourself killed stupidly. To prove his point, Mahito flew into the air before charging at a crazy speed towards Kuki. Instinctively, she tried to defend herself using her psychic powers and, surprisingly, managed to grab Mahito in mid-flight. Why did you do that? While Kuki wanted to express herself further, she felt something cold against her neck. It was a blade. Mahito had partially modified his bat form into a sharp weapon that he pointed at Kuki's neck. You have potential, but you're too weak to explore the supernatural currently. It wasn't just about exploring the supernatural. Mahito wanted to prepare Kuki for various extraterrestrial attacks on Kami High School. The young girl, possessing strong spiritual power, would inevitably attract dangerous creatures. I must avoid a situation like with Gigi. This girl is my possession, a dangerous gleam shone in Mahito's eyes. Pav of Kuki, I'm a bit exhausted, do we really have to come to the music room at 2 a.m.? Although I rested very early, I'm not really happy about being active at school at this hour. You want to become stronger, yes or no? Mahito, perched on my shoulder, gave me a slightly disapproving look. I quickly nodded to confirm my willingness to improve my current strength, but also to. Now, get ready and don't forget, if you're weak, you'll die here, he said seriously before hitting the piano keys. Wait, you never mentioned dying during training. I protested, but Mahito ignored me and continued pressing the piano keys. Wretches, you deserve to die, shouted a voice coming from a portrait in the music room. Mahito returned to his original form, showing rare seriousness. It seems he really wasn't joking about the risk of death. Remember, you can block their musical notes but you must avoid the rests, understood? Although I don't quite understand the whole situation, I trust Mahito. I immediately nodded. He smiled tenderly at me before modifying the shape of his legs to those of a gazelle and running towards the ghosts. Symphony number 6, shouted a ghost representing a famous musician. We were teleported to a field, or was it an illusion? What's happening, Mahito? I immediately asked my mentor, but he just motioned me to keep my attention in front of me as he dodges an explosion. Musical notes were falling on us like relentless rain. I tried to block them with telekinesis, but I couldn't stop everything. There are just too many. Bam! When I thought I was done for, Mahito caught me and carried me in princess position. You need to try using your telekinesis on yourself and improve your movements. This ability isn't just a distance technique. Although he was explaining how to use my powers, Mahito didn't stop using his own to block and dodge the musical notes. But there are too many attacks. I was struggling to catch my breath under the relentless rain of musical notes. You need to find a rhythm. I remember you're a musician, right? Find their rhythm and find yours. Mahito deployed his long hair to protect us from a huge explosion. I see. I had understood what to do. I don't know what Mahito saw, but he smiled at me before returning his hair to its original form. Paw of Mahito. I love that expression. Usually, this is the moment when a secondary character is determined and about to get a glow up. Here we go. I rushed again towards this group of music-obsessed ghosts. This fight could end in one blow if I deployed my domain, but this is training for me and Kuki. Boom! A piece of earth hit a rest that was dangerously approaching me. I gave a gesture of thanks to Kuki before growing wings on my back to finally catch a ghost. I wonder what you taste like, I said as I immediately started using my cursed technique to forcefully absorb the ghost's aura. There was, surprisingly, more resistance than with the stalker ghost, but I simply increased the power. A bit of aura was wasted in the process, but my theory is confirmed. I made a musical note appear after creating a musical instrument. Aura is the essence of everything in this universe. Whether you're alive or dead, you possess it. If you lose all your aura, you return to the void. It's been proven that aura can be transferred, but the donor spirit must agree, and psychic powers are also needed. Ira was able to obtain the ghost woman's powers when she was between life and death this way. I simply manipulated my aura thanks to Mahito's cursed technique. The principle is simple. I connect my soul to that of my opponent, then I suck up the aura like drinking through a straw. Of course, my opponent could potentially resist or even counterattack. So it's a bit risky, but I have the necessary confidence for such a crazy act thanks to Granny Turbo's words and Mahito's cursed technique. Granny Turbo mentioned that some yokai and spiritual beings attack humans precisely to steal their aura. Their goal, trying to become more powerful or come back to life. Who's next? Author's note. It should be understood that Mahito's technique consists of modifying the soul and body of his victims. This gives him a considerable advantage during the aura stealing process or during aura-based fights. However, Mahito can find himself in difficulty if he faces an individual with great control over their soul, which could prevent him from easily absorbing the aura or worse. Soul_Eater_0252 Creators, Thoughts. 9 comments 0 vote. Download the app for greater interaction. You can chat with me about my writing experience apart from the comments section. Soul_Eater_0252. Download app now. Chapter 4. What will be your path in psychic arts? Narrator's Pav. After Mahito absorbed the yokai's aura, he felt stronger and even gained the ability to generate musical notes with various properties. I clearly won my bet, but it seems that absorbing the aura doesn't make the being disappear from the memory of the living and the dead, he thought. Mahito assumed that it didn't count as losing the aura, but rather as an assimilation. It was a situation similar to Boo in DBZ, or simply, the spirit whose aura Mahito had absorbed would continue to exist as part of him. Shit, he got glasses. Shouted a spirit angrily. Just speed up the pace, they'll end up being overwhelmed, ordered the spirit who looked like their leader. Mahito quickly turned his gaze to Kuki, who was starting to struggle with the new rhythm imposed by the angry spirits. No choice, she's still a novice after all, he thought. Having inherited the original Mahito's genius, even though this was his first death match, he had good adaptability, unlike Kuki. Mahito split into several ravens and began flying in all directions to obstruct the spirit's vision. One of the ravens landed on Kuki's shoulder, who appeared slightly out of breath. Listen carefully, you need to understand this about psychic powers. Mahito's clone, disguised as a raven, quickly explained to Kuki while laying out the basics of psychic arts. Mahito felt a bit guilty for dragging Kuki into a fight so quickly. He had forgotten that she wasn't a genius like Momo and that she was still an ordinary high school student until yesterday. He had been slightly reckless. It's not a big deal, I can finish these spirits at any time, and I can use this pressure to force Kuki to immediately apply the theoretical lessons, thought Mahito's clone while protecting Kuki from an extremely close attack. Psychic powers rely on three important elements: concentration, visualization, and projection. They're essential for influencing the world around you with your powers. Kuki listened attentively to my words while the other clones protected her and the original Mahito kept the spirits in check. When you use your powers, I want you to concentrate, visualize the effect you desire in your mind, and project it into reality. After listening to Mahito's clone's explanation, Kuki experienced an illumination. Before, she thought she could only move objects or control them from a distance, but according to Mahito's clone's words, her powers seemed to go far beyond that. I'm going to leave you now, but don't forget the basics, and one last piece of advice that I'll elaborate on later. The tone of Mahito's clone was serious. Psychic abilities fall into three types: those who create and manipulate energy to control the world around them, those who use their psychic power to manipulate their own brain and others for various purposes, and finally, those who enhance their physical abilities. After finishing, the Raven Mahito and other clones rejoined their original. Mahito probably wants me to specialize, concluded Kuki after Mahito's long explanation. Looking at her situation, she understood that she wasn't an expert in hand-to-hand combat like Mahito. Although brain manipulation was tempting for her, given her past, she knew it wouldn't be immediately useful. The only option was to follow the path of the psychic power user capable of controlling their environment, as Mahito had explained. I shouldn't just settle for lifting part of the ground or manipulating objects. Kuki concentrated on her environment and ignored her opponents. She trusted Mahito. Although she was in an illusion created by the spirits, she could feel the warmth and wind blowing around her. I got it, exclaimed Kuki, raising her arm toward where the exchanges between Mahito and the spiritual entities were taking place. She sent several wind blades in their direction, after using her psychic powers to take control of the wind. Mahito immediately transformed into an eagle and flew away at an incredible speed, but the musician spirits weren't so lucky. Slash! The wind blades tore through the spirits, reducing them to unrecognizable pieces of flesh. Very good work, you can rest now. Mahito was really satisfied with Kuki's performance, so much so that he didn't hesitate to compliment her. Thanks, whispered Kuki before fainting. Shortly after, her nose started bleeding. Mahito quickly used his cursed technique to heal her and increase the sleep hormone level, or simply melatonin. She just needs to learn to control aerokinesis, but she's on the right track. Mahito would have preferred Kuki to specialize in the cerebral field, but that wasn't the most urgent thing for her at that time. Kuki needed strength and, yes, a reliable servant. Mahito had therefore decided to encourage her to follow this path temporarily. The illusion broke after Kuki defeated the last spirits, but one portrait had disappeared, unlike the others that remained. It seems that the one whose essence I absorbed won't return, thought Mahito, relieved not to have absorbed the others. This place was literally Kuki's training ground, it would be a waste to devour it entirely. Mahito left after carrying Kuki like a princess and quickly flew toward her house. He wasn't worried about Kuki being tired the next day, since he had increased her melatonin production. Frankly, Mahito's cursed technique is extremely convenient. Mahito's pav. Wake up, you're going to be late. I was in the form of a cat and jumped on Kuki's bed to wake her up. Just one more minute. As I try to get her out of there, I end up being pulled against her. I end up becoming an impromptu stuffed animal. It took about 10 minutes for Kuki to finally wake up, and we were now on our way to high school, or more specifically, Kuki was running at Olympic speed to get there. Why didn't you insist on waking me up? Her tone was full of reproach, but I didn't really care. I made sure you got a restful night despite your nocturnal activities, and I even woke you up, but you just wanted to linger, I said, ignoring her accusatory look. We finally arrived just in time. Interesting. Once in the hallway, I noticed Okarun, the protagonist of Dandadan. He seemed to have understood that I wasn't an ordinary cat since he kept glancing at me while looking around. You should know that cats and other animals are forbidden at school, but there he was, seeing a cat lounging on a high school student's shoulder, and no one noticed it. I gave him a little wave with my paw, and his shocked reaction was amusing to watch. 7 comments 0 vote. Chapter 5. A Vampire. If you want. Narrator's POV. What's with this situation, a spirit attached to a person? Okarun couldn't help but curse his terrible luck. He had barely gotten rid of Turbo Granny, and now he's dealing with another supernatural creature. While Okarun was thinking about looking for Momo Ace to get rid of this unknown entity, the mysterious cat gracefully jumped from the high school girl's shoulder before casually heading towards him. Hey, this is the second time we've crossed paths. Despite his feline appearance, Okarun could tell his speaker was smiling. Looks like he's already obtained his power, but he no longer has that, thought Mahito, laughing at the young man's misfortune. After a moment, he glanced at the door, sensing an insistent gaze that had been fixed on him and Okarun for a while. As expected, she has also awakened her spiritual abilities. Mahito and Rin Sawaki's gazes met briefly before she hurriedly fled. Image. Who are you, and what do you mean, we've already met? Asked Okarun, before Kuki suddenly grabbed Mahito in her arms. Sensei, please avoid leaving abruptly. Kuki glanced at Okarun before preparing to leave, but Mahito suddenly transformed into a mouse and jumped onto Okarun's desk. I'm not done with my conversation, Kuki. You can let me have a moment with him, right? Kuki sighed, nodded in resignation, and walked away. What did you do to that girl? Okarun's tone became slightly hostile as he looked at Mahito. As expected, Takamura is naturally cowardly at the start of the story, but that changes when someone's life is at stake. This is also why Mahito appreciates Dandadan's protagonist. I simply changed her life. Mahito gestured at Okarun's classroom. Haven't you noticed? Nobody cares about you in this high school, except currently your friend Momo, but before, you were like Kuki, Mahito explained honestly. Of course, Okarun was even more insignificant than Kuki, but Mahito preferred to keep that to himself. I simply gave powers to Kuki, and I decided to take her under my wing. She's doing pretty well so far. Mahito couldn't help but be satisfied with his work on Kuki, and he hasn't even exploited all the potential of the psychic abilities she possesses. You gave powers to Kuki-san, just like that. Okarun looked at Mahito with suspicion. The rest is part of a deal between us. She can break it if she wants. I'll find another desperate person to replace her, replied Mahito, shrugging. Okarun showed a complex expression after listening to Mahito. He knew what kind of person he was before being cursed by Turbo Granny. This girl must have felt extremely lonely to be willing to make a pact with such a dangerous spirit. Okarun can't really perceive or like Momo, but he feels that Mahito is dangerous despite his nonchalance and cute mouse appearance. This situation is due to the very nature of the former Mahito, literally born from human hatred. This aspect of Mahito has been further reinforced upon arriving in this dimension because of the world's laws. Kuki too had felt uncomfortable with Mahito at first, but her precarious situation pushed her to ignore, despite herself, this dangerous aspect of his very nature. You also wanted to know when we met, right? Okarun refocused on the mouse in front of him. The answer is the day before yesterday, you know, when you met Momo Ace. Back then, you had neither power nor an interesting mentality like Kuki's. Mahito would have liked to discuss more, but it was break time. He jumped off the desk and headed toward Kuki, but was interrupted by Okarun. I'm not cursed anymore, so I don't have powers. His voice mixed bitterness and relief. Oh really? But you still haven't gotten your balls back in your pants. Mahito ignored Okarun's desperate calls after he patted his crotch to verify Mahito's words. We'll meet again, Takamura-ken, but today, I have another disciple to catch, thought Mahito as he climbed up Kuki's body to settle on her shoulder. He's funny, but it's too bad he's not qualified to become my disciple, thought Mahito while leaving with Kuki, unable to hide his genuine impression of the kid. You intended to take him under your wing? Asked Kuki, slightly surprised. Yes, but he was missing an important criterion that you possess, Kuki, he replied, meeting her insistent gaze, encouraging her to continue. The desire to change things. This kid desperately took refuge in fictional chimeras, but you're slightly different, Mahito paused before continuing. You had a great thirst for change and recognition, hence my choice to take you, ultimately. Of course, Mahito won't say that it's also because she has a nice pair of breasts, or because she was desperately seeking recognition. I'll keep that part to myself. Mahito concluded mentally. I see, thanks, she said quietly, but Mahito heard her perfectly. The two spent break time together without worrying about the canon events between Momo and Okarun, until the moment Kuki crossed paths with Rin in the hallway. It's not good to run away, Miss Class Representative, said Mahito when Rin tried to slip away again. Mahito had already signaled Kuki to catch her at the moment of their encounter. Okay, now that you can't run away anymore, we can talk, right? The young girl nodded slowly, staring at the little mouse in front of her with resignation. Kuki, please release her mouth. The telekinetic restraint slowly loosened around her mouth. Listen, Mr. Vampire, I won't talk about you or your collaborators in this establishment, but don't kidnap me. Although her voice was panicked, one could easily guess she didn't really mean it. She literally blushed with embarrassment looking at Mahito, and her irregular breathing doesn't help make her convincing. I think darkness might have found a worthy rival in fiction. Of course, if it involves vampires. Mahito couldn't help but wonder what kind of books this girl must have read to end up like this. I don't want to kidnap you, I just want to know if you're interested in writing a novel with me and maybe becoming my disciple, like Kuki here, explained Mahito, bursting her bubble of strange fantasies. So, you're not a vampire like Takamura-san? She asked, doubtfully. I can become one for you, but only if you agree to become my disciple and write novels with me, retorted Mahito. He was certain he could imitate most popular vampire abilities thanks to his cursed technique, so he wasn't bothered about pretending, especially if it allowed him to recruit Rin Sawaki. She didn't hesitate long before quickly nodding. Excellent. Now, my first question is whether you've seen a golden sphere somewhere. Mahito knew that Rin had found one of Okaran's balls, but he didn't know which police station she had turned it into. It would take too long to search them all, he preferred to simply ask her directly. Now that I've recruited her, I can negotiate with Seiko to exorcise her childhood friend. Mahito had big plans. He was planning not only to win his debate with the mysterious strangers but also to have some fun with the different heroines that Okarun had pushed aside for Momo. Author's note. Finally, I was able to post a new chapter. Soul_Eater_0252 creators, thoughts. 10 comments 0 vote. Chapter 6. Understanding the Soul and Beginning Training as a Self-Taught Meister. Narrator's POV. It didn't take long for Mahito to steal Okaran's ball, stored in the police station that Rin had pointed out. I don't know why, but my instinct tells me to keep this thing, thought Mahito while examining the golden sphere between his paws. He quickly assumed it was due to the nature of the spirits in this world, who desire to absorb spiritual energy to become more powerful. He'd like to absorb some too, but fuck no. For Mahito, there was no way he was going to swallow or absorb Okaran's ball. Although he was currently a genderless entity, Mahito considered himself a man, and he wasn't going to change his principles so easily just to get more power. It'll soon be time to wake up Kuki, he thought. Despite his reflections, he used his powers to stimulate the sleep hormone to allow Kuki to benefit from optimal rest, despite his 3 hours of sleep per night. Mahito had considered imitating Biscuit's Hatsu to facilitate future training for Kuki and Rin, but he was still hesitating. You have to understand that Mahito's power consists of altering a person's soul to cause changes in their physical form. It might seem simplistic, but it's not really the case. There's a reason why the former Mahito had so many questions about the soul. Indeed, the power of his biokinesis or molecular manipulation heavily depends on his understanding of the soul itself. I was lucky to keep my domain expansion, but Mahito no longer had access to his true form. He assumed it was related to his reincarnation, but he couldn't say for sure. The memories of the former Mahito indicated it wasn't that simple. I still want to sleep, mumbled Kuki, half asleep. Bam! After a well-placed hit from Mahito in his cat form, Kuki finally woke up. You need to understand that your natural potential isn't really great. You need to train more, and this time, I won't come with you. Mahito needed to understand his own connection with his soul to fully exploit his power. He couldn't stay with Kuki tonight. At this rate, he'd just end up limiting himself. I need to try like the original Mahito, I need to experiment with the Black Flash in combat. This conclusion is the only logical answer Mahito came to. Kuki looked surprised before suddenly grabbing him. Please don't leave me alone with these scary musical spirits. Despite his pleas, Mahito made his heart as solid as steel. Mahito's pav. I already have decent subordinates and my cursed technique is perfect for strengthening subordinates. The only problem remains my personal power. I'm probably very strong right now, but can I beat a yokai like Reiko? Or the alien leader named Kur? The answer is, I don't know. One was able to defeat an alien fleet capable of annihilating entire civilizations, and the other showed abilities like manipulating space to become untouchable, kind of like a certain strongest. In both cases, I'd need to use my domain to win, and if I mess up my shot, then it's over. I'm not sure I can beat Kur's race without my domain. Their technology is simply too problematic. I'd need to rely on my invulnerability against physical attacks. And even then, my victory isn't guaranteed. The situation is similar with Reiko. If she traps me in her mirror, I'm screwed, not to mention her physical abilities or her annoying curse. Hence the importance of recovering or obtaining my true form, but also of strengthening myself. I have an idea to achieve this goal without depending on the Black Flash, but I need to experiment first in this hospital. While I was wandering the hospital corridors looking for terminally ill patients to experiment on, I heard the soft and soothing sound of a flute. Who are you? I turned towards the direction of the music, and that's when I saw it in the hallway. A creature wearing a red mask with a raven on its shoulder. Next to it were many children, frozen like zombies. Image. While I was analyzing the situation, it started playing its flute louder. A slight dizziness came over me, and I hurried to modify my body to make it more suitable for the situation. The creature seemed surprised by my reaction. I had literally lost my ears. I don't know what kind of yokai you are, but I hate creatures that attack children. The creature looked dismayed but hastened to create distance. The raven on its shoulder launched several feathers at me to cover its master, but I acted quickly. I created several eyes on my skin and dodged all the feathers shot at me before rushing towards the unknown entity. The creature was trying to escape with the children. I hurried to modify my lower back to look like Lysa's tentacles from Tokyo Ghoul and pierced it before it could get away. Unfortunately, the raven escaped while I was dealing with its master. I'll make good use of your power. I immediately started devouring its essence. Despite its struggles, it was devoured by me. What's happening? The children started regaining their senses. They were all confused by the situation and started looking around. You were under control. I had barely started explaining when their bodies began to glow. I see, they're all souls belonging to people who died here, but they couldn't reach the afterlife because of this creature and its raven. Thank you, Mr. Frankenstein. While my brain was processing the situation a bit, a little girl from the group of souls in front of me approached before bowing to thank me. I see, they must have recovered their memories before going to the afterlife. I just smiled at the children and hoped they could live happily there. After this incident with the flute creature, I continued wandering around the hospital. I ended up healing lots of people as planned, but there were some small incidents when I wanted to test certain things with the cursed technique. The reason for most incidents comes from my desire to create a special weapon. I wanted to see if I could create a weapon with consciousness. Unfortunately, it was a failure. I don't think it's impossible in itself, but using an ordinary person's soul makes things too complicated. They just have too little aura. So when I roughly manipulate their soul to make massive changes, they suffer serious damage. It would probably need a soul like Momo's or Kuki's to push this experiment much further. In the end, the only thing I could create in the hospital with this experiment was a scythe created from my own soul. It's thanks to this that my theory became reality. So, the creation of an ego weapon is real. Yes, I decided to call it an ego weapon. For now, Product Zero is the scythe. It consumed enormous amounts of aura to be independent from me. This has advantages, but also disadvantages. The advantage is that this scythe has no connection to my soul. So if someone like Nobara or Yuji hits it, then I won't suffer anything. The disadvantage with this scythe is that it has its own free will. The only thing I could alter during its creation was its memory, personality, and powers, which are derived from my aura. Mahito, when can I sleep? I had already left the hospital with a little imp on my shoulder. Image. We were now in a park. I just want to test some theories. My scythe is unable to alter creatures unlike me. After all, I created it from a clone. It can just modify and manipulate its own soul. This gave me hope that recovering my true form won't need several black flashes. Now listen carefully, you need to understand the theory of soul wavelength and soul resonance. This is how an unknown power from this reality came to life in a hospital and developed in a park. Author's note. No, Mahito doesn't need Meister powers, except maybe soul detection. He just wants to continue where the former Mahito stopped. Who will be Diablo's Meister? We'll see soon. Soul_Eater_0252 creators, thoughts. 10 comments 0 vote. Chapter 7. Soul Resonance and a Sexy Nurse. Narrator's POV. Mahito knew that reproducing the soul wavelength and soul resonance was possible, but he didn't know what effects it would have on him. After all, he's currently a spirit, not a human. In theory, he should better understand his soul after performing a soul resonance. Unfortunately, he can't rule out the unexpected. Got it? At Mahito's question, the little demon nodded. To perform a soul resonance, both souls need to be compatible. This problem shouldn't exist, given the very nature of their souls. The other important element will be understanding and using the soul wavelength during our soul resonance, thought Mahito as he grabbed his scythe. He detected his scythe's soul in a few seconds. Its soul wavelength was calm and docile. Mahito then tried to send his own soul wavelength to establish resonance. Bam! Asterisk. Mahito was immediately thrown in the opposite direction of his scythe. My emotions were too aggressive, and yours are too zen. Grr asterisk. He had just experienced rejection. This phenomenon happens when a Meister and their weapon aren't compatible. Yet, Mahito had made sure to make his scythe compatible with him during its creation. The only other possible explanation for this situation was their divergence in mindsets. I get it, but damn, that hurts. The little demon emerged from a bush, with a bump on his head and some scratches. After self-healing, Mahito grabbed him again to try once more. In the end, he spent over 30 minutes failing before finally getting a better grasp of his weapon's soul wavelength. He must be feeling my emotions too, right? Strangely, this idea didn't really bother him. Their two souls are now connected thanks to their soul wavelength. Soul resonance. They both instinctively shouted in perfect sync. An energy both different and oddly similar to aura and spiritual energy formed, then naturally flowed toward the scythe's blade. The result was a scythe glowing with blue light, before suddenly exploding. Sorry, I didn't know I had to watch the final result and not just keep it there, Mahito apologized. Despite his apologies, he was satisfied. That wasn't all. He had perceived a huge sphere surrounding him during the execution of the Scythe Meister technique, called Witch Hunter. It's as big as kids at the start of the story, he thought, slightly disappointed, but it's better than Maka's. Mahito could perceive surrounding souls. It seemed his soul sensitivity had indeed increased. I really hope my existence won't just be about taking damage, grumbled the little demon as he got up. Despite his complaints, the creature, named Diablo, remained cooperative. Looking at your face, you had an enriching night, teased Mahito in his child form, with a slight smile. Currently, he had swallowed Diablo to keep him safe. Haha, very funny, replied Kuki with a grimace. Her hair messier than usual and her clothes torn in places reinforced the idea that, despite her new understanding of telekinesis, she had faced difficulties. I'm almost forgetting something. I want you to run away soon. At first, Mahito's words weren't well understood by Kuki, but once she grasped their meaning, she looked shocked. How's running away gonna make me stronger? She protested, shaking child Mahito, who remained perfectly calm. Listen, staying here is slowing down your growth. Plus, they treat you like crap. This idea didn't come from nowhere. Mahito had to take Rin and Kuki with him sooner or later. So, he had planned to possess someone using Okaran's ball and officially adopt both teenagers. I really want to explore this reality. There's so much to see. It would be too lame to stay stuck here. Money didn't worry Mahito, he could steal or earn it easily. What concerned him was Kuki's mental state, weakened by her family's toxicity. Okay, I'm ready to abandon everything and run away with you, Mahito-sama, declared Kuki determinedly, though her face turned red. Of course, Mahito noticed the teenager's expression, but he preferred to ignore this misinterpretation of his words. Excellent, I can't wait to leave this place. Little Mahito jumped onto the bed before hugging Kuki like a pillow. Damn, I understand Meliodas and his brother now, thought Mahito with a touch of irony. Mahito decided internally that he would adopt his Shota form more often in the future. Pav, Mahito. After leaving Kuki in her classroom, I decided to walk around a bit. After all, I'm in a manga, and Japanese schools are always interesting to observe. Not to mention that, I'm in Dandadan. I could potentially stumble upon something interesting outside of my knowledge. What's a kid doing in the hallway? I immediately turned toward the sudden voice. What? Why, you can see me. Before me stood the school nurse. Image. I remembered she had often treated Okarun in the story, but I hadn't expected her to have a talent for perceiving supernatural things. Am I not supposed to see you? She asked, clearly confused, before carefully scanning the surroundings. Her expression suddenly changed, as if she had just realized something. You're a spirit. Although the idea of gaining a special talent is tempting, I prefer to stay cautious. There are literally people capable of stealing powers in this universe, so anyone who can see spirits isn't necessarily friendly. Rin and Kuki are different, I know them from the manga. But her, no. I've only read the work up to chapter 172 after all. Mommy, how to detect if a person is potentially dangerous? Put a child in their arms and observe their reaction. Oh, sweetie. She immediately grabbed me for a hug. Normally, I'd be out of breath, but I can simply modify my body to avoid that. Besides, now that I think about it, do I really need to breathe? I just do it out of habit. But technically, I'm a spirit, right? Damn, I'm stupid. Sorry, but I'm not your mother, she finally said, releasing me. She hasn't shown any malicious intent, and honestly, I doubt someone who loves children could be evil, not in a shonen manga universe, anyway. Sorry, my memories resurfaced when I saw you. You really look like her. Okay, now I'm switching to info-gathering mode. I need to know if other people like her exist in this damn high school, or if it's an isolated case. Happy to hear I look like your mommy, but what are you doing in the hallway? She seems to be asking this out of pure curiosity, judging by her facial expression. I'm just walking around. No way I'm mentioning Kuki. I see, but if you have nowhere to go, you can come find Big Sis at the infirmary. After patting my head tenderly, she left. Not very nice to abandon a child alone, though in her defense, she offered to let me follow her or find her at the infirmary if I had nowhere to go. I ended up continuing my walk without any other major discoveries until break time. I'm sick of high school, grumbled Kuki while walking beside me. Why are you complaining? People are looking at you today, right? Under my pressure, Kuki finally decided to fix her hair. Image. I must say the transformation was surprising. Maybe it's because of the training or the cursed technique that gave her restorative sleep, and when I heal her, I make sure to properly clean her body. I'm still unable to do like in Chinese novels where they expel all accumulated toxins, but I can remove things like dead skin or residue attached to the skin. Yeah, but I don't like these hypocrites. If the teacher wasn't there then, she mumbled the last part. Bam! Despite my small Shota form size, I gave Kuki a little hit on the head. You can't just stay with me, Kuki, it wouldn't be healthy since I'm a spirit and you're a very much living human. I stopped walking before looking at her. You need to make friends, evolve, and most importantly, have fun. Seems like I've gotten a bit attached to this idiot. In the end, we were able to find Rin a few minutes later. During the whole way, Kuki seemed to be thinking about something. 13 comments 0 vote. Chapter 8. Yokai vs. Cursed Spirit. Narrators Pav. Hey Rin, haven't you seen a girl named Ira around? After searching for several dozen minutes, Mahito finally found his second subordinate. Hi, Mahito-sama. I think I saw her at the gym with 2 other girls, she replied after a brief moment of reflection. I didn't kill the acrobatic Silky spirit back then, but I slightly fixed her. Mahito had initially planned to devour her, but he had changed his mind for several reasons. First, at the time, he wasn't sure if it was even possible. Second, the spirit's story had deeply unsettled him, to the point of deterring him from taking action. Any person or entity losing their aura is erased from existence. Granny Turbo claimed that humans and spirits would not remember the missing individual, but Mahito didn't really believe her. Why? Because if everyone forgets, then how would Granny Turbo be aware of it? In the end, after eating a spirit, Mahito still remembered him. So Granny Turbo had exaggerated for some unknown reason. Thanks, stay here, it could be dangerous for you, he declared. Rin nodded, obeying Mahito's order. She didn't know why he was suddenly interested in Ira, but seeing her teacher's serious expression, something was brewing at the school. Bam, you want to harm my Ira, shouted a female voice coming from the gym. I think things are really going off the rails. Sigh. Despite her intervention, Acrobatic Silky still found herself in conflict with the protagonist Takamura. Stay behind me, Mahito-sama. I can handle this spirit, said Kuki, taking the lead. Her large silhouette, standing in front of Mahito's small Shota body, was a comforting sight to observe. In just a few days of training, she's already so reliable, thought Mahito, nodding with satisfaction at Kuki's attitude. However, he refused her offer. Thanks, I appreciate it, but I'll handle this, he declared, entering the gym, no longer hiding his spiritual energy. This energy, it's repulsive, muttered Granny Turbo, scrutinizing the origin of this presence. At the center of the gym stood a child, apparently around 11 or 12 years old. Yet, his facial expression betrayed a much older age. A wide, excited smile distorted his originally cute face. My child. Acrobatic Silky turned her head towards the entrance after sensing this threatening aura. Unlike Granny Turbo, she hadn't had the luck to see Mahito's true nature before his arrival. Sorry for the delay, kids, Mahito declared in a nonchalant tone, followed by Kuki walking a few steps behind him. My child, Acrobatic Silky cried out, rushing towards him, holding Ira in her arms. Bam, her hand hit an invisible barrier. Telekinesis. Momo, still on the ground, was surprised, her eyes fixed on Kuki with a shocked expression. Sigh Kuki, didn't I tell you I was handling this? Mahito's voice betrayed a slight weariness. I hate repeating myself, but I understand she's worried. In response, Kuki immediately apologized. Sorry Mahito-sama, my body moved on its own, she said nervously. Mahito was satisfied with her quick response to the attack, but also her humility before him. Watch out, screamed Momo, but her warning came too late. Bam, can't you see I'm talking? And what's all this drama with Ira? I'm sure I restored your memories, Mahito declared as his hair elongated to impale the yokai. His technique resembled Jiraiya's from Naruto. Mahito's hair protected Kuki while removing the panicked Ira from the enraged woman's arms, simultaneously counter-attacking. You want to take Ira, my child, away too? Tears began to slowly flow from beneath Acrobatic Silky's mask. I see, you've indeed regained your memory, but it's only reinforced your despair and obsession with Ira, Mahito sighed, shaking his head in disappointment. He abruptly withdrew, carrying the two young girls in his hair. Boom! Acrobatic Silky destroyed their previous location by making hair strands surge from the ground. If she wasn't a spiritual being, I might have been caught. Mahito thought, grateful for his soul sensitivity. Kuki, watch over the little one, Mahito ordered without turning back. I'm not a little girl. Ira protested, despite the red tint on her cheeks while observing Mahito's adult form. Mahito ignored the teenager's reaction behind him and continued advancing towards his target. Throat vomiting sound. Finally, you made me come out. Diablo's annoying and lazy voice echoed in the gym. I could easily win with my cursed technique, but I prefer to avoid showing everything to this old grandma, Mahito thought, having already spotted Granny Turbo's presence. If you're ready, execute the soul resonance, Mahito said bluntly. You're really an abusive master. You only bring me out to fight or train. Diablo complained, while still obeying. Soul resonance, they declared in unison. Mahito and Diablo's souls were originally one, which made their soul resonance remarkably fluid. Thanks to this unique connection, their spiritual energy was amplified far beyond the usual norms of the Soul Eater world. They're strange, their spiritual energy resonates with each other, and it seems to amplify in a terrifying way, Granny Turbo murmured, her eyes wide open, fascinated despite herself. I would never have thought of using spiritual energy like this. But it seems they can't increase the intensity indefinitely, she quickly analyzed. Mahito had been right to be cautious with Granny Turbo. Thanks to her experience, she had quickly grasped the essence of soul resonance. Are you sure you want me to exorcise you? You'll never see Ira again, Mahito declared in a serious tone. I'll never abandon Ira. Oh, are you? Acrobatic Silky screamed, projecting several debris towards Mahito. Okay, I'll have to calm you down a bit, Mahito declared. At these words, the blade of his scythe glowed intensely. Witch hunter, he murmured in a low voice before his androgynous silhouette disappeared from Ira's vision. Image. At that moment, only two people could still distinguish Mahito, Okarun and Granny Turbo. Momo, on the other hand, felt his presence but knew she couldn't react in time against him. Slash. All the debris projected by Acrobatic Silky was cut cleanly, like butter against a white-hot blade. I really need to train in wielding weapons, or opt for something much simpler to use than a scythe. Mahito thought while eliminating the last wave of hair separating him from Acrobatic Silky. Bam! The enraged woman tried to hit him with a kick, but her attack met the shaft of Mahito's scythe. Taking advantage of the opening, Mahito pushed her back with a backhand punch, then sliced her legs with a quick and precise gesture. Phew, we managed to take her down quickly, Diablo declared, returning to his imp form. So boss, do you want to take her under your wing or really exorcise her permanently? He asked with a smile so wide it made everyone uncomfortable. My child, Acrobatic Silky murmured, her disordered words breaking the silence despite her miserable state. Mahito crouched in front of her, his cold but curious gaze fixed on her. Tell me, why did you attack Ira when you now know the truth about your child? Tears began to flow abundantly from the woman's hollow eyes. Yes, I remember, but it's so painful, she sobbed. I didn't want to suffer like this anymore, not again. So, when Ira could sense and see me, I swore to protect her from supernatural danger. But you resisted, didn't you? So why did you put yourself in this situation? Mahito extended a hand, although he had already decided to take her with him for a new experiment if her answer didn't satisfy him. Yes, I resisted my impulses and emotions thanks to my memories. But when this delinquent hit Ira, I lost control, she confessed in a trembling voice. While Okarun held back Momo, furious that Acrobatic Silky had dared to call her a delinquent, Acrobatic Silky's terrifying mask began to crack. Had she found peace, or was she destroying herself under the weight of despair? Mahito slightly furrowed his brow at the situation. I see, Mahito murmured, extending his hand to take her with him, but a surprising scene unfolded before him. Mom, I love you, Ira suddenly declared, hugging Acrobatic Silky. Mahito observed the scene, intrigued. Why is she acting like this? She didn't receive Acrobatic Silky's aura, so no memories, unless she must have remembered her, precisely from the time when she was still a child. This was the only logical conclusion Mahito could draw. Do you still want me? Acrobatic Silky asked in a hesitant voice. Ira lowered her eyes to her and then slowly nodded. A light explosion then burst from Acrobatic Silky's body. When the light faded, a woman dressed in white, wearing a large hat, stood before them. Her frightening mask had completely disappeared. If my little Ira wishes it, then I will continue to protect her, she declared, sketching a soft smile. Image. Great, she no longer has her powers, but she's gained a stand. Mahito thought silently, slightly amused. 9 comments 0 vote. Chapter 9. I am you, Seiko Ace. Ira's Pav. When I think about how this whole situation started because of that demon Momo Ace. Well, I admit I might have pushed things a bit too far. So it's because of you that there are weird rumors about me at school. I slowly nodded while continuing my meal. It's actually really delicious. Sorry for attacking you with my powers. I also went overboard. I was slightly surprised by this declaration, but I accepted it with a nod. For now, I'll make a truce with this demon. I wouldn't want my hero to see an unreasonable side of me. Just thinking about him, I couldn't help but glance in his direction. He no longer had that cool androgynous appearance, but looked like a child. It's really too bad that he also has demonic powers, just like that demon Momo. Maybe I could find a remedy on the internet. Now that we've put our differences behind us, shouldn't you say something to Okarun-kun? She pointed to that loser to whom I wanted to bring a bit of sunshine into his miserable life. After a sigh of resignation, I decided to apologize. I'm really too kind. Sorry, I said simply. Ira-chan, you must be more sincere with your classmates. Acrobatic Silky's soft voice resonated beside me. She now had the same appearance as when we first met. If she asks me to do something, I can't really escape my fate. Hey, loser. He stopped eating and looked at me with a clearly nervous expression. A true loser. Sorry for treating you like an idiot and causing you trouble. After my words, Acrobatic Silky nodded at me, satisfied. Aren't you going to ask questions about the demonic powers you saw? My hero asked, sitting on the girl named Kuki's lap. I already know she's a demon. The other loser too. I think they bring sacrifices to their pseudo-grandmother to keep her young. I shared my honest view with my hero. Although he also has demonic powers, he's surely on the good side, right? He did save my life. I don't think an ally of evil would do that. He must still have some humanity in him. What? The surprised voice of Momo's grandmother proves that my deduction is good, or at least close to reality. Indeed, you have a good head on your shoulders, the hero said, nodding approvingly at me. Boss, I don't see why you're giving her credit. This girl has clearly mixed everything up, the little imp declared before starting to lick the bowl in front of him. After finishing and letting out a small burp, the little devil wanted to say something but. Bam! The hero struck the little devil with a quick blow before clearing his throat, then he fixed his attentive gaze on me. As this idiot explained, you've somewhat mixed things up. But yes, they do have demonic powers. Before Mahito could continue, a metal bat was placed just in front of his nose. Squirt, I tolerate you despite your stinky smell, but if you start babbling to a child in front of me, things are going to get bad. After Momo's grandmother's declaration, there was a silence that lasted a few seconds, before it was broken by the hero. Ha ha ha, me, smelling stinky, I've never seen such an own goal. Why do I feel in danger next to the hero? Mahito's pav. Ha ha ha, me, smelling stinky, I've never seen such an own goal. I already knew that my relationship with Seiko would be difficult to be friendly at first, just like with Granny Turbo. Granny Turbo and I have something in common. We clearly emanate a hostile presence because of our nature. What do you mean? Seiko, usually unexpressive, slightly furrowed her eyebrows while looking into my heterochromatic eyes. Image, I'm a case somewhat similar to the spirits in the music room of Kami High School. I was born from the negative emotions emitted by humans. There was a heavy silence in the room after my declaration. I could see Okarun sweating abundantly while looking at us. There was also Ira who seemed worried. As for Momo, she seemed lost in thought. It seems that escorting the kids to Seiko's place was a bad idea, but I couldn't suppress my curiosity about one of the best waifus in the work. What does the origin of your birth have to do with this fetid presence surrounding you or the lies you're telling this kid in front of me? Seiko tightened her grip on the metal bat. Boss, are you really going to tolerate this insolence? The demon, until now smiling, had taken a serious expression while staring at Seiko. I could also feel Kuki's heartbeat behind her breasts that I'm using as a pillow. She was already on alert. Don't worry, she's not going to attack me. Bam! Before I could finish my sentence, I was thrown out of the residence. Boss, sensei. The voices of Diablo and Kuki resonated behind me, but that wasn't important to me right now. I got up casually with my Shota body and observed the sexy grandmother in front of me. You must have a lot of money to trigger such an attack in your house, I said honestly while observing the huge hole. What? He's not hurt. Okarun observed my face returning to its initial form. Logical. No physical attack works against me or the boss, the imp declared proudly before receiving a kick in the butt from Kuki. Outside, he quickly grabbed Kuki's intention and transformed into a scythe, which I easily received and placed on my shoulder. This won't be a piece of cake, Seiko mumbled while removing some red papers from her clothes. They were surely seals to create a barrier. Grandma, stop, Mahito-san isn't a bad guy. Momo had rushed between us, but this changed nothing about the already tense atmosphere between Seiko and me. Get lost, kid, your grandma just doesn't like hearing the truth, I said, shrugging before removing the scythe from my shoulder. Ira is a Catholic believer. So, your Shinto stuff or yokai are diabolical to her. I sketched a smile while looking at Momo's face, who was realizing the meaning of my words. Besides, I was literally born from human hatred. Saying that I smell bad or that my presence is fetid is like insulting humans. There was a long tense silence in the air before Seiko returned to the house. Bullshit. Not all humans are like the trash that gave birth to you, she muttered, but all the people present had supernatural senses. Ha ha ha, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. You're really in denial, Seiko. But keep my words from today in mind, I said, staring at her as she observed me over her shoulder. I am you, Seiko Ace. I said in a deadly serious tone before releasing all my spiritual energy that I had been suppressing since arriving here. Asterisk. Momo vomited, and Kuki could barely hold back. They could see the aura. I wondered what they had seen. I turned to walk towards the exit. Thanks for the meal. You coming, Kuki? Kuki glanced at Ira and Acrobatic Silky before quickly walking towards me. As we were about to leave Seiko's domain, a familiar voice stopped me. Wait, Mr. Demon, Ira screamed, with Acrobatic Silky just behind her. Yes, what do you want? I said, turning towards her. Why did you save me? She asked, looking at me carefully. I see, this is the question that triggered her obsession with Okarun. Do you really need a reason to save someone? I said honestly. Ira seemed not to understand. If I can save someone, then I do. It's that simple. I live according to my desires. If I want to kill, I do. If I want to save someone randomly and I'm in the mood, I do. There's no particular reason. Proof. I helped Kuki out of pure interest, but mostly on a whim. I could have given psychic ability to the first random loser with big boobs, but I chose Kuki. Only Rin I chose out of pure interest, because of her potential for gravitational manipulation. I see, so you're not lost in evil despite your demonic origins, she murmured before raising her head and fixing me with an intense gaze. I will save you from your demonic nature, Mr. Demon, she screamed before running away. Thank you again for saving Ira-chan, and for saving me from myself. Can I still consider you like my child? I thought for a second about Acrobatic Silky's proposition before rejecting it. I like walking around in this Shota form for comfort, but I have neither mommy issues nor a motherhood fetish. She seemed sad when I shook my head to refuse, but she quickly found her smile again. Before rushing to catch up with Ira, she tenderly caressed my head. That's why you saved her. The boss wanted to cultivate 2 other women, but I find it a bit unhealthy to want the mother and daughter. Bam, I really should hit Diablo more often. He has the gift of saying my true intentions out loud, and now, thanks to him, Kuki is red as a tomato. I want to adjust certain details in the previous chapters. Mahito doesn't use honorifics like San, Chan, Kun, or others, but the people around him do. This is to enhance immersion. Mahito isn't of Japanese origin, so he's not used to this kind of thing. Soul_Eater_0252 creators, thoughts. 11 comments 0 vote. Chapter 10. Kuki's desire for improvement. Seiko's POV. I'd prefer you avoid hanging around that guy. Mahito, A weird name for a spirit, but it says a lot about his true nature. I really would have liked to exorcise him today, but that'd just be too difficult. I'm not sure my house would survive such a confrontation, and there are also the kids to protect. But we need to talk to him. Young Okarun seems to have some understanding of the situation with Mahito, and he didn't argue with my order, simply nodding in response. Unfortunately, Momo's still hesitant. She's clearly troubled by something for a while now. I hope that guy hasn't gotten into her head with his words. Little Ira already seems to have an obvious crush on him, given how she rushed after his departure. Kids these days, they love bad boys too much. I'll have to guide Momo, like every time she gets interested in a bad boy. You must have seen him better than all of us, right? Momo can perceive the essence or aura of anything, and even interact with it through telekinesis. She's surely already perceived Mahito's true nature. Reminding her should be enough to discourage her from getting too interested in him. I'm also a bit surprised by this girl named Kuki. It's abnormal that she can stay with Mahito, especially since she shares some similarities with Momo. Logically, she should be extremely sensitive to Mahito's repulsive presence. Yet, she seems to want to stay by his side despite everything. This simply proves how dangerous he is. He's managed to manipulate and persuade a young girl to become his loyal subordinate. Yes, I saw his aura. He's extremely different from Okarun-kun's, and he's more repulsive than Granny Turbo's, Momo mumbles thoughtfully, slightly grimacing while recalling the scene. No wonder he doesn't sit right with his innocent kid face, I say, taking a cigarette. Smoke. Yes, but I felt Okarun-kun's ball's presence on him, Momo suddenly declares. Cough. I exhaled the smoke wrong. What? You could have said that earlier. At the mention of his second ball, young Takamura couldn't control himself and grabbed Momo to encourage her to continue. I can somewhat understand him. If Momo's telling the truth, then he would have missed tonight's opportunity to become a complete man again. I knew there was a familiar energy around the other brat, but I chalked it up to a yokai hostile to humans, Granny Turbo confirms, supporting Momo's words. Sorry Okarun-kun, but I had planned to ask him directly, which is why I proposed he accompany us to Grandma's. Damn, I acted impulsively. Momo brought him here to calmly retrieve Takamura's ball, and I screwed everything up because of my bad impression of Mahito. This is going to complicate ball retrieval. Smoke. So annoying. But I'll have to allow you to talk to him again and try to invite him here to negotiate. Given our current relationship, we can't really become friends easily. I made a real mess. I'll have to negotiate with him to get the kid's ball. Mahito's pav. Sorry, boss, I won't do it again. While my idiot subordinate is tied up and hanging from Kuki's window, I'd stretched out on my apprentice's comfortable bed. Sometimes, only a good punishment keeps people in line. No training today. From her voice's intonation, she seems slightly impatient. I like that she's motivated. Well, I thought we'd rest, but we can always train a bit, I say, rolling on the bed one last time in my cat form before jumping on her shoulder. This time, you won't need to face a ghost or a weird creature, I added, signaling her to exit through the window. Kuki nodded before jumping from the second floor of the residence and landing gracefully. She's not yet skilled in body reinforcement through psychic energy, but she can use it slightly. She definitely needs more training regarding psychic energy's effects on the human body. That's why I'm taking her to the nearest women's prison. Why women's? Because I don't want Kuki to deeply manipulate male human bodies for now. You mentioned once that psychic abilities have a mental or cerebral aspect, but you didn't really elaborate. Damn asterisk. I thought she was only interested in the environmental manipulation aspect of psychic abilities, but she seems to want to explore other aspects like cerebral manipulation. Should I help her learn? The problem is she might get confused if she tries to learn too many things at once. I simply outlined the basics of physical improvement via psychic energy to prevent her from ending up like Momo, who becomes weak if her hands are bound. It seems this has awakened her curiosity about other evolution paths available to her. Do you want to learn all possible psychic powers, or do you want to focus on those related to manipulating physical phenomena around you? My feline ears couldn't help but contract a bit while waiting for her response. It's good that Kuki focuses on aerokinesis for now, but at the time she chose to use this type of power, Kuki needed immediate strength. I'll understand if she wants to choose another power path after testing other ways. It seems body reinforcement has opened her eyes to other possibilities. I remember wanting her to take the mind or cerebral manipulation path, but should I really influence Kuki in such an important decision? The answer is of course. I'm the master here, not her buddy. I'm not really sure, she says with an embarrassed and clearly confused tone. As expected, she's still hesitating, but I want to be stronger. There was an indescribable fire in her eyes when she said that while looking at me. Then, the best path is versatility, but you'll gain power slowly, I say honestly. If she tries to learn and master all aspects of psychic abilities, it would be too long for her. It's like a Nen user in Hunter x Hunter wanting to master all Nen types. It's just madness, given human lifespan. Of course, there's the option of creating another Kurapika, but I don't want to kill Kuki. I don't like wasting life unnecessarily, and who knows how long I have left in this reality. Nothing guarantees the loyalty of my next subordinates either. Rin is loyal, but not as much as Kuki, for now. That's why you suggested I first learn psychic abilities I'm most comfortable with. Kuki asks after a moment of silence. Exactly. But you can also learn the basics of some, in case you face an abnormal situation, or simply because it's convenient, I say in a reassuring tone. I understand, like body reinforcement to facilitate our movements, she mumbles thoughtfully. She shouldn't get impatient, her sensei is watching over her growth. At worst, I'll just negotiate with the yokai stuck in Danmanra's dimension, held by Zuma. I have an Okarun ball. I think it'll be easy to use my powers in that damn cursed suitcase. I like the idea of stealing this yokai's powers. This thing can literally manipulate an individual's senses and boost their strength proportionally to their potential. Zuma obtained monstrous strength in an instant thanks to that. This yokai even mentioned that Rin has potential big enough to cause enormous chaos in the world with its help. It would be truly incredible if I could transform it into a subordinate. And at worst, I can simply devour it to use its power myself. Anyway, I have absolute confidence in beating this yokai. Why, I'm literally its worst opponent. I don't need my eyes, ears, or other senses to detect or fight an opponent. I simply have too many means to detect an opponent during combat, like soul wavelength, aura, ultrasounds like a bat, a snake's tongue, and I can modify my body to produce other organs if mine are confiscated during the fight. I also know how to protect my soul and spirit from intrusions. So, I'm the natural predator of the fairy tale card. Image. You sure your GPS indicates the nearest women's prison correctly? I say doubtfully, looking at a strangely familiar high school, but I can't remember where I've seen it. Oh sorry, sensei, it's a boys' prison from a former girls' school. I think we need to go further, outside the city. I nodded, leaving the place with Kuki. Author's note. Yes, I'm joking about prison school, lol. I'm not corrupt enough by web novel to put that stuff in my story. Anyway, I'll publish a bonus chapter if we reach 100 stones, lol, good luck. Soul_eater_0252 creators, thoughts. 10 comments 0 vote. Chapter 11. The human mind is complex and fascinating, isn't it? Kuki's Pav. I don't like this place. Mahito and I have finally reached the nearest prison after about 10 minutes of driving. The women's prison corridor is austere, but also strangely oppressive. I wouldn't say it's more frightening than the yokai I've encountered, but this place gives off a particular atmosphere, both uncomfortable and gloomy. I could see women in each cell, seemingly resting. For now, no guard has spotted us. Sensei, I don't think it's a good idea to walk casually down the corridor, I said, noticing surveillance cameras all along the way. It's fine, I sent a clone to take control of the cameras. We first need to find the archives of this place, he replied without even turning around. Archives, I repeated, confused. Why come to a prison to dig through their archives? What, you haven't understood yet? Mahito turned and fixed me with his feline face. Sorry, but no, I honestly admitted. He sighed before continuing on his path. This time, he explained in detail the reasons for our presence here. So, I need test subjects to advance and improve my powers. Frankly, I don't like the idea of using humans to train, but on the other hand, I really want to improve. A few hours ago, I was unable to see the metal bat of Momo's grandmother hitting Mahito's face. Yet, I had the raw power necessary to stop it. I see you're hesitating to use humans to train, but remember they are criminals condemned to death, Mahito declared in a serious tone after throwing a glance in my direction. You're just moving forward their death sentence. And that's only if you fail to control the flow of psychic energy. As usual, he was right again. I'm not really killing anyone. I'm just advancing their condemnation date if I mess up. Understood. My mood slightly improved after Mahito's explanation. Okay, it's here. After inserting his cat tail into the lock of the door, Mahito opened it without using force. This is how we easily crossed all the doors standing before us. There are so many documents. Can't they just store them on a computer? I really don't understand some organizations that refuse to live with their times. Probably a high-ranking official who diverted the funds meant for that. I doubt they keep these documents in paper form to protect themselves from computer hackers, Mahito responds while pulling out several folders. There were many images and information about various women, but Mahito stopped on a particular type of profile. We'll start your training with them. Serial killers with no family to mourn their death. And look, there's even a pedophile in the bunch, he explains, handing me a folder. Mahito's pav. You used a bit too much force when manipulating psychic energy on the cerebral cortex. You must understand that this part is extremely fragile and complex, I say, observing the woman lying on the bed, eyes rolled back, a trickle of drool flowing from her mouth. Anyone would think she's had the night of her life, which isn't totally wrong. It all depends on the context of the sentence. It's already been 2 hours since Kuki and I have been in this women's prison. Currently, she's training to modify the memories of death row inmates. Unfortunately, she hasn't succeeded today. We still obtained some interesting results. Kuki could easily read the prisoners' memories. The process is relatively simple. She connects her psychic energy to her target's aura. I got this idea by observing Momo and Acrobatic Silky. The real problem lies in memory alteration. Kuki is currently unable to directly modify an individual's memories by influencing their aura. She can only suppress them. It's good news, but I had hoped she could become my own Shukuro Tsukishima. Too bad. It seems this will take more time than expected. So I decided to opt for a more complex path that will require long-term training. I suggested to Kuki that we move to the stage of cerebral manipulation. For now, she's a bit clumsy when it comes to using psychic energy on delicate areas like the cerebral cortex or hippocampus. But I remain hopeful that she'll soon be able to exercise precise control on such a small scale. Another notable success was the manipulation of emotional memory in a brain region called the amygdala. Thanks to Kuki, a pedophile has now been freed from her adoration of Shota. However, another obstacle has slowed her training: brain areas like the cerebellum and basal ganglia, which are essential for managing habits and a person's learning ability. We can't remain forever in this prison to observe Kuki's manipulation of them. Despite some unfortunate failures, I think you did well today, I say, noting the surprisingly low brain death rate, well below my expectations. Thank you, it's thanks to Sensei's teachings, she responded with a respectful tone. I couldn't help but puff out my chest, proud of her progress. But this pride also made me realize something important. Our training was much more effective when Kuki began reading scientific explanations about the brain and its functioning. It seems we should both study the subject seriously. Otherwise, one day we might commit an irreparable mistake. I wonder if this nurse would accept giving private lessons to me and Kuki. Please, Mahito-sama, give me back my ball. Sound of whispers. Asterisk. As soon as I arrived on Kuki's shoulder in front of Kami High School, I was greeted by Okarun and Momo. Bam, idiot, you're yelling at a girl to give you back your ball in front of the school gate. Momo screamed, shaking him energetically. His act only attracted looks and murmurs around us. Kuki, we'd better leave quickly, otherwise your reputation, which has been improving lately, might deteriorate because of this moron, I say, slightly amused. At my words, Kuki displayed a look of realization before rushing inside the school, ignoring Okarin's protests behind her. Sensei, why do they think you have Takamura's ball? Kuki asked, visibly confused, as we crossed the hallway toward her classroom. I could feel the furtive glances of students, probably intrigued by the earlier commotion caused by Momo and Okarun. You remember when I asked Rin if she had seen a golden ball? Seeing her questioning expression, I began explaining part of the situation concerning Takamura. Kuki nodded occasionally, attentive to my explanations. It turns out I have his second ball, I added, trying to hold back a laugh. So, Sensei touched another man's ball. That's not a bit gay as an act. She launched with a teasing smile, looking at me mischievously. Quote. If you don't want to end up like Diablo last night, I advise you to avoid this kind of provocation. TSS is asterisk. Oh, Sensei is sulking. And that's how I ended up enduring Kuki's teasing throughout the way. Damn Okarun, I'm not about to return your ball easily. Author's note. No, Mahito can't directly modify a human's memories, he doesn't know the brain well enough. It's different from increasing the production of certain hormone types, and accomplishing such a delicate act as altering memories. That's why Mahito and Kuki will have to study the functioning of humans in general a bit more. Soul_Eater_0252 Creators, Thoughts. 7 comments 0 vote. Chapter 12. Thank you, Orochimaru-sama. Mahito's Pav. Okay, where's the infirmary? I was currently alone in the school hallway. My goal: Find a certain nurse to help train Kuki and, if possible, improve my understanding of the human body. Although my power relies on my mastery of the soul, I like learning more about the body of creatures. This could bring unexpected gains. In other words, Kuki won't be the only one benefiting from this training. I will too. Noise. Hey, miss, I said, entering the infirmary. It had taken me a while to find it, given the size of this damn school. You're the spirit of that child, right? Your name. She started searching for my name, slightly furrowing her brow. But before she could finish, I took the initiative. In reality, I had never given her my name the first time. But, to be honest, I love giving others the impression that they're in the wrong. My name is Mahito. We haven't known each other for long, but you've already forgotten me. Sniff, sniff. I pretended to cry, artificial tears rolling down my cheeks. Sorry, sweetie, I'm so busy right now, and I see so many people. Oh. She let out a small surprised cry when I suddenly grabbed her. Honestly, Meliodas and Zeldris are right, you can never get tired of this kind of sensation. Truthfully, I could almost adopt my Shota form as my default form. I say almost. Okay, sniff, I'll forgive you this time, but I adopted a slightly embarrassed air, before lifting my head and diving my gaze straight into her eyes. I still don't know your name. There was a brief silence, then she suddenly burst out laughing. Bam! A light tap on the head. Cheeky brat. Now, I remember the whole scene, she said with a tone of realization. You didn't give me your name, and I forgot to do the same. Yes, but why Sniff hit me on the head? I asked, scratching my scalp. Strangely, the pain was definitely present. Which was unexpected, given that I'm supposed to be physically immune, unless it's attacks that directly touch the soul or very special powers. Well, I'll chalk that up to toon logic. Because you were naughty. She adjusted her work attire before adopting a serious expression, looking me straight in the eyes. Tell me, did you come for me to take care of you? I thought for a moment before shaking my head to refute her assumption. Although the idea of staying with a mature woman is tempting, I much prefer staying with Kuki or Rin. They're more docile, and more gullible. No, I just want a little help. I began to explain the situation to her, particularly about Kuki, without going into sensitive details. I didn't mention the overall power of psychic abilities or my soul-related powers. I simply presented it as a biological manipulation capable of accelerating healing. Better to keep Kuki's and my actual powers under the radar. I'm not sure if this is ethically correct, she mumbled thoughtfully. Think about it, big sister Ju. If my friend and I better understand the human body, we can save more lives. Think of all those parents, who have lost. I said in a falsely sad tone, feigning a personal topic. She let out a long sigh of resignation before giving in. Sigh, okay, I'll try to help you. But it won't be simple. Finding bodies to practice on will be complicated. And I'm a nurse, not a surgeon. Thank you for your understanding. I'll come with my friend to see you after class. Before she could change her mind, I quickly left the place. But, before crossing the door, I heard her muttering. Did I just get played? ... Haha, I'm too good. Long live Shotas. I thought out loud, not too concerned about being heard. After constantly being ignored by humans, I'm starting to relax and behave more naturally in public. Indeed, my little Mahito-kun, you're really too good. A soft and familiar voice resonated near my location. I suddenly turned around to see who was behind me. Ira, Acrobatic Silky. Damn, I'll have to start memorizing the wavelengths of their souls. This world doesn't have cursed energy. My very existence has been literally forced to adapt to the logic of this reality. Because of that, I can't use Mahito's knowledge to improve my detection capabilities. The only positive point is that my spiritual energy has retained some properties of cursed energy. Hi, Mahito-kun, said Acrobatic Silky with a soft smile. But behind this warm expression, I detected a slightly threatening gleam. Hi, Mr. Demon, and, why the hell do you have again this appearance? Ira asked, approaching. Strangely, she seemed to avoid meeting my gaze. I noticed that humans are more comfortable with this appearance, I explained calmly. You can see it with the demon from the manga Freren. I'm simply using this form to avoid frightening or stressing humans. Not to mention the fluffy hugs with women. Freren, Ira asked confusedly. Shoot, I'd forgotten I was in another reality. Never mind, she quickly continued, casting a furtive glance around us. She was probably making sure no one was catching her, talking to herself. Before I could say anything, Ira suddenly grabbed my hand and pulled me out of the Kami school building. I could easily resist, but I was curious about why she was acting like this. I think we're far enough from the school, right? I said. Barely had I finished speaking when Ira suddenly pinned me against a wall. What? I remained a bit confused by the sudden situation. Since when does a girl pin a man against a wall? Damn, since when have values changed? Finally, the boss reaps the fruits of his hard work. Sound of popcorn chewing. Bastard, who allowed you to hide food in your body, or in mine? While I was mentally insulting Diablo, Ira finally opened her mouth. I know this is wrong, she said in a hesitant tone. Go for it, Ira-chan. The encouraging voices of Diablo and Acrobatic Silky rang in our ears. But I can't deny my feelings for the demon that you are. After finally expressing what she felt, Ira hastily pressed her lips against mine. I could have easily dodged this but, like Gohan getting embraced by Vital's legs in Dragon Ball Z, I accepted my fate like a man. Yeah! Acrobatic Silky let out a joyful cry accompanied by background applause. Diablo in my stomach whistled and applauded too, but I wasn't paying attention to them right now. Boss, she's devouring you. Diablo was right. Ira's gentle kiss was becoming increasingly aggressive. I was literally pinned against the wall in my Shota form, and this girl was holding my head with both hands. Sounds of ragged breathing and fluid exchange resonated around us. I wanted to push her away, but my pride refused to surrender. No way I was losing a making out contest against a high school girl, that would be embarrassing. I used my cursed technique to get a tongue similar to Orochimaru's and executed a counterattack. It took less than 10 seconds for Ira's legs to lose their strength. Thank you, Orochimaru-sama. She lost. I thought I had taught her well. Acrobatic Silky mumbled thoughtfully. Bam! After recovering my adult form, I immediately smacked this crazy girl on the head. Why are you teaching Ira stuff like this? Quote, damn, she almost won a making out contest against me. Am I in an H anime or a shonen? Sorry, but Ira-chan was too insistent, she declares, moving away from me. She's probably afraid of getting another head smack. Just as I wanted to have a discussion with this unworthy mother, the sky suddenly turned dark. I felt a sensation similar to the opening of a domain, and I'm inside. Empty space. Image.